in a week or so, and I know people want to get their sessions in beforehand. Now, one of the things too that I wanted to say is talk about with this illegal reproduction is some of the things that are happening with the spiritual warfare. I told you guys because a lot of the witchcraft that was being done, a lot of rituals were being done all at once, a lot of love spells were being done all at once on the real mates, a lot of death rituals were being done. It called forth a force upon this planet that activated the ancestors and all the hyperdimensional races and species to come down and like rectify them completely once and for all. And what's happening now is a lot of people are dying, they're going to jail, they're getting sick, there's a lot happening. And what's happening is because a lot of these alien forces, they use something called cloning, which is a biotechnology wherein you upload your image and your photo as well as your DNA up into a computer program and it prints out a physical body. And they do this using the technology that they call CRISPR, CRISPR. And there's been a lot of ethical concerns about CRISPR because of how they've been using that technology to edit DNA and genes. Go look this up. It's very real. You guys already seen in the news, oh, we brought a ferret back from extinction. They've been printing all these different animals. Most of the cows and pigs that you guys eat in the meat industry, they're all clones and 3D printed because a lot of the cows got mad cow disease because they were eating each other. They were grinding up the cows that they could not sell because they were rotted and feeding them back to the chicken and the cows and the pork and things like that. There's a lot of laws being passed right now too. You guys didn't see that. We did a lot of advocacy work and we told them to stop importing meat, and they stopped importing meat. There was something that happened in Atlanta where somebody parked a big old meat truck by Popeyes over on Ponce de Leon, which is a major road, and they were selling like big boxes of steak and stuff like that for like $30. And now there's like a big old salmonella and illness outbreak in Atlanta, and they're tracing it back to like the meat industry, right? Meat that was illegally imported and brought here on private planes and stuff like that. So there's a lot going on with the meat industry. So what's happening now is because a lot of these aliens have been using that cloning and doing different things with the pharmaceutical industry as well as the food industry. A lot of people have woken up to the game, but they're not able to clone as much as they wanted to anymore because the machines have broken. They're getting banned from the planet. The companies are getting shut down and raided and whatnot. So now what they're doing is forcing this illegal reproduction, which I have a whole episode on Patreon that we did. It's really deep and really in-depth. It's stuff that you've never heard before. We read hieroglyphs from the Mayan tradition, from the Kemetic tradition, from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition about like how serious this stuff is with the Mayan, with the illegal reproduction. And you guys need to be like, this is going to be the next war. You know, they talk about World War I, II, and III. We already fought World War III, and it was spiritual. And it was what was happening with Stephanie, the tarot readers, and all the other practitioners that got caught up for using black magic and starting shit. And they think that it's a movie, that they're like these evil villains, like going across the galaxy and working with white aliens and working with politicians and starting wars because they started that war in Russia, which is in this book, which is why she went to jail in Toronto, and which is why Russia put out sanctions. If you want to know all about that, it's in this book, right? It goes very deep in terms of the war magic that they were using and the sorcery and a whole bunch of stuff. So that was World War III. We fought that in the spiritual realm. World War IV is happening now, where all the hyperdimensional races and ancestors are getting together and identifying every single fucking karmic from every planet, from every universe who's been starting shit, playing with magic and playing in all the different Akashic records, which is, there's a new one that they just created right now that our Father Tahuti is sealing. There's been a lot of information that I've been putting out about this too. And be careful because there's a lot of quacks coming out. All of a sudden, I can speak hyperdimensional language and read spells. I can change your birth chart. I can do this. I can do that. Be careful with a lot of quacks. There's a lot of people that have been trying to stalk me, harass me, even move into my apartment building, surveillance me illegally, all kinds of stuff so that they can go ahead and take this work. And you have to be ordained. You have to be a high priest or priestess. So when you go through your spiritual warfare battle, which a lot of you guys have, you get to use these gifts and access to the tools and access to this work. But I'm going to read a hieroglyph out from the Mayan tradition. And next month, which is upcoming July, we're going to be doing all the different calendars from the different indigenous cultures and really identifying how demons manifest themselves through those different calendars and astrological systems. So it's going to be very interesting. So let's look into this. So Roe v. Wade. You guys do not know that this Roe v. Wade stuff, where basically they stopped, you're no longer able to get an abortion. So that means Planned Parenthood is getting defunded, et cetera. What? Some people didn't even know that, right? That's the law. That when you're like, Roe v. Wade, what is that? That means that no, you can't get abortions anymore, right? And it started with that fuckery in Texas. But the funny thing is, this is their big plot and plan. If some of you guys read Parable of the Sower and Parable of the Talents, she talks about this. A whole bunch of kids being left alone, unaccompanied, people having hella children, they can't get rid of them. illegal reproduction. That's what they're trying to enforce, because what they're also doing is by the diet that you eat, what you go on social media, what you put into your skin as body products and on your hair, they can activate hypersexuality. So you're going to start seeing a whole bunch of 12, 13, and 14, and 15-year-olds pop out with babies, a bunch of karmics on OnlyFans pop out with kids to get welfare, because OnlyFans is like stopping a lot of the sex work, right? So what's happening is, they're like, okay, out in space, the different demonic forces that want to keep this going and don't want the high priest and high priestess to mate, come together, and want the fuckery to keep on going. It's like, we have to amplify their illegal reproduction. Because when you have illegal reproduction, that individual, because they're not supposed to be here, their chart can be amplified and used for demonic purposes. That's why you see a lot of the karmics, they're all illegals. And we talk about this. And that's why they're always trying to shut my channel down, because I've been going in and exposing everybody. So what ended up happening with this illegal reproduction is they're like, okay, people can't get abortions anymore. Think about this with these Republicans and stuff like that. Why do they want more pickaninnies? Why do they want more black and brown children? They don't, right? Unless they were using us for organ harvesting, which is coming out, which because they're hella sick and getting hit up with real ancient magic from Kemet, right? Unless, and other societies and races, unless they can no longer clone, and unless they are looking for bodies to be able to enter into so that they can survive long term. So think about that, right? So now this thing that we're talking about with this illegal reproduction, I have to read one of the hieroglyphs out to show you guys just how far this is going to go, and you need to be very careful. And a lot of you guys need to be careful about who you think is your twin, who you think is your mate, and having kids right now, because you may end up putting yourself in a situation where you're actually bringing down a demon. And that's why a lot of the times now what they're going to start doing is, because they have a lot of our DNA in the healthcare system, through previous abortions, through getting your blood drawn, through getting your mouth swabbed, through even going into different projects and hoods and cataloging everyone's waste and feces and taking their DNA that way, because you can find your DNA, of course, in your bodily fluids, right, and your waste. Now we have a database of people. Okay, we're going to start putting this technology on her. We have her phone tapped. We can put the technology in her phone, and it can just go into her energy fields to start tracking your energy, tracking your energy, gathering your data and everything. Some of you guys don't know this, that when you go on social media and post your photo, the technology that they're using, which is from aliens from space, can actually like scan your face, scan your energy, and actually catalog your data, which is one of the reasons why Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook got caught the fuck up, because that's a whole database of information and data and DNA, and that's against a lot of different scientific laws, health laws, CMS laws, etc. Because they were also caught like amplifying a bunch of mental illnesses and things like that. That's why California is putting out a law against the tech companies. If you make children addicted to social media, you can go to jail and get your company sued because of what they were doing and how they were using YouTube and some of those videos. You guys remember that when they were putting out all these videos on YouTube and the parents were complaining, what is this that you're doing to the kids? And they're glued to the screen, and they're putting different chips and screens and iPhones and tablets and iPads and MacBooks so that kids will be constantly fucking addicted. That's why they passed that law in California. They just passed that law because they're using technology as a form of sorcery. So now here comes this illegal reproduction, where they're going to be trying everything and going every which way to try to tag you and identify you and catalog you and start shit with you. And it's very ridiculous. So let me go ahead and read out this hieroglyph so you guys can see what's going to be happening and why you need to be very, very careful. All right. So basically, in the Mayan tradition, you have, I would say, like, it wouldn't even be really considered Mayan, because there's like the Mayan Aztec traditions. They weren't separated. They had one king and queen over them, and that's Huicuacatlacatl, which is the sun god, and his mate. Her name is Incracatuaclacatl, which is basically the high priest and high priestess of the sun. The sun and sun goodness and sun blessings, right? And as well as reproduction. This is the demon. This guy went into heavy black magic, sacrificing high priestesses and women and stuff like that. One of his sacrifices was not Ixchel, who was around and has been hijacked and turned into a demon. And the real Ixchel is around. That's not her real name. You know, Ixchel, which is basically, they say that she's over the rabbits and she's all about reproduction and fertility. No. That's a karmic that was also involved in illegal reproduction, which is basically putting magic on masculines and feminines and having them go mate with karmics to create illegal reproduction and drain their DNA of spiritual power so that they can manipulate those bodies and enter into them and use that magic for themselves, because they were blocked off from that gift because of what they were doing. He went into very deep magic and ritual, sacrificing the original Ixchel, creating that other Ixchel through soul fractioning. Because if you know the tradition of Ixchel, there's a young Ixchel and there's an old Ixchel. The old Ixchel is the hag, right? She's the one that cannot be trusted. The young Ixchel is the one that's okay. So his name is Ngrakatuwa, meaning that I am the demon that has gone into various forms of black magic and ritual that not only destroyed me, but destroyed who I thought I was and destroyed everything that I will touch into the future. So he says, I have multiple faces. I have one face that looks like your mate, that's a masculine. I have another face that looks like your mate, that's a feminine. I have one face that looks like your child. And I have another face that's the demon that I became. What will happen is when you are going into the garden, aka like using any type of substance like cannabis or alcohol or whatever, when you go into the garden or when you are mating with your mate, I would download a demon seed. That demon seed will then attach to your DNA and rip out all your spiritual jewels and gifts and bring them to me in the form of a child that will ruin your life, or in the form of a mate that will ruin your life, or in the form of circumstances that will ruin your life, right? So this is the demon that's really running a lot of this right now. There's a few of them throughout traditions, and go ahead on Patreon and go watch that episode because it's very good. But I had to read this out to you because there's the